What if the next Galaxy S phone could be thinner and have a bigger battery? That's what Samsung is rumored to be working on with the Galaxy S26 Edge, and honestly, it sounds almost too good to be true. But some leaks are starting to make it feel possible. The Galaxy S25 Edge, which came out recently, was one of the thinnest phones Samsung has ever made at just 5.8 millimeters thick. But that thinness came with a cost. Its 3,900 mAh battery just didn't cut it for heavy users. Now, new reports suggest that Samsung's next version, the Galaxy S26 Edge, could be even thinner than the S25 Edge, but somehow still manage to include a battery larger than 3,900 mAh. And here's the interesting part: this might all come down to new battery material technology. According to a very well-known leaker who goes by the name Ice Universe, also known as Phonert, Samsung is working with some sort of new battery innovation that could make all this possible. Well, nothing has been officially confirmed by Samsung yet. This leak has gotten a lot of people talking. The best guess so far is that Samsung might be using silicon carbon, or SiC, battery material. This is the same type of battery tech that OnePlus used in the OnePlus 13, which allowed them to fit a 6,000 mAh battery into a phone that's still under 9 millimeters thick. The OnePlus One 3T even had a 6,260 mAh battery. That's really impressive considering the size. So if Samsung is now planning to go down a similar path, that could explain how they're aiming to make the Galaxy S26 Edge thinner and give it more power. But like with any new tech, there's a catch. Silicon carbon batteries tend to wear out faster than regular lithium-ion ones. So yes, they're more powerful and efficient in terms of size, but their lifespan might be shorter. That's why some people think Samsung might be using this battery tech only in the S26 Edge for now. It would be a smart way to test how well the new batteries perform before rolling them out to their other phones in the future. Now, what about the rest of the Galaxy S26 lineup? So far, we've heard that the Galaxy S26 Ultra will probably keep the same 5,000 mAh battery that's been used in the S25 Ultra, S24 Ultra, and even the S23 Ultra. Not much is changing there. The standard Galaxy S26 might also stick with a 4,000 mAh battery and a 6.2-inch display, just like the Galaxy S25. So if that's true, the real upgrade in the battery department would only be happening with the S26 Edge. What would you think if a top smartphone company launched a pretty solid mid-range phone in the US and barely told anyone about it? You'd expect big promotions, ads everywhere, maybe even a launch event, right? But Samsung has done something very different with the Galaxy A56 5G, and not in a good way. The phone, which actually looks like a decent option for many people, showed up quietly in the US market with a price tag of $499.99. That's not bad at all, especially when you consider what it offers. But instead of making a big deal out of it, Samsung delayed its release and then dropped it into the market with almost no excitement, no energy, and honestly, no real effort to let people know it exists. And that's frustrating, not just because it's a missed opportunity, but because this kind of strategy keeps happening again and again. It makes you wonder, does Samsung even want its mid-range phones to succeed in the US? Let's be clear, the Galaxy A56 5G isn't a bad phone. In fact, for the price, it checks a lot of the right boxes. It has a large 6.7-inch Super AMOLED display, which is one of the better types of screens you can get in this range. It offers crisp colors, deep blacks, and great viewing angles. On top of that, it comes with 45-watt charging support, which is actually faster than the high-end Galaxy S25, believe it or not. The performance is described as acceptable, which isn't amazing, but let's be real, that's exactly what most users expect and need in a mid-range device. You can scroll, chat, watch videos, take decent photos. It handles all the daily stuff well enough. But Samsung's biggest mistake wasn't in the specs, it was in how they treated the launch. Delaying the release in one of the world's largest smartphone markets made no sense. And when the phone finally arrived, there was no real push to create any excitement. No trailers, no big headlines, no influencer buzz. It was almost like Samsung hoped no one would notice, and that's the real problem. This isn't the first time Samsung has done this. Over the last few years, we've seen them treat several mid-range Galaxy S phones like they didn't really matter. Instead of building a clear strategy for these devices, it feels like they've been setting them up to quietly disappear. That's disappointing because the US needs good mid-range options. Not everyone wants to spend over $1,000 on a phone. Many people are looking for solid performance, good design, and long battery life without breaking the bank. The Galaxy S26 5G could have been that option. Is upgrading from the Galaxy A54 to the new Galaxy A56 actually worth it, especially if you've already had your phone for 2 years? Well, the Galaxy A56 is finally out in the United States, and it's bringing several big changes that might convince you to make the switch. The phone is now available for $499, no contract or trade-in required. And since Samsung never released the Galaxy A55 in the US, the A56 becomes the true follow-up for A50 for users. Right off the bat, one of the first things you'll notice is the larger screen. The Galaxy A56 has a 6.7-inch Super AMOLED display, compared to the 6.4-inch one on the A54, making it noticeably better for watching videos, browsing, or gaming. And it's not just bigger, it's also brighter. The A56 hits 1,900 nits of peak brightness and 1,200 nits in high brightness mode, while the A54 topped out at 1,000 nits. That's a solid improvement, especially in bright outdoor conditions. Next, let's talk battery. When the A54 was released, Samsung claimed today battery life, but many users found that a bit optimistic. With the A56, this promise feels more real. Tests showed it lasted around 52 hours on a full charge with about 8 hours of screen-on time, which is impressive. Performance also sees a big leap. Powered by the Exynos 1580 processor and backed by 8 GB of RAM, the A56 runs One UI much more smoothly than the A54. You'll feel the difference during everyday use, app switching, and even gaming. Samsung has also made big improvements in camera speed. The selfie camera has been upgraded, and the photo-taking experience is much quicker. For example, the A54 takes 800 milliseconds to capture a photo, while the A56 cuts that down to just 240 milliseconds, closer to what you'd get from a flagship like the Galaxy S24. When switching between lenses, the A56 does it in just 430 milliseconds, compared to 980 milliseconds on the A55. The build quality is another big step up. Instead of plastic, the A56 now uses Gorilla Glass Victus Plus for protection on both the front and back, along with an aluminum frame, which gives it a more premium feel. Charging is faster too, with support for 45-watt wired charging, which is a welcome addition for users who hate waiting around. Software-wise, the Galaxy A56 runs Android 15-based One UI 7 right out of the box,